Hello, welcome, and today I'm going to be going over my picks for the worst Magic the Gathering card art of all time. So I've been playing Magic for about 15 years now. I'm a big fan of the game, and I'm going to show you what I believe. There's like 100,000 Magic cards or something like that. There's a ton of cards in the game. I've narrowed down my top 10 least favorite pieces of artwork of all time. Before I get into the list, I think it's important that I say that this is not meant to be mean-spirited. I'm not trying to make fun of the artists. I'm certainly not saying that I could do better than these, although I think number one on the list, I probably could do better. You probably could too. But again, not meant to be mean-spirited, so Magic art and art in general has come a long way as far as technology goes and all that kind of stuff like that. So a lot of these cards are going to be older, obviously. But anyways, let's get into the list. Before I do get into the actual top 10, I have one honorable mention, and that is Olivia Valderin, which many players know is somewhat famous for its artwork because of what I believe to be a mistake by the artist. So obviously the artwork itself looks very nice, so I didn't make the list because of that. But if you look closely at the actual artwork, you can see that Olivia has her knee up in the air, and she has got her hand on her knee. But then if you look down at her feet, you will see that there are 2 feet at the bottom. So what exactly is that extra limb, if you know what I'm saying, up in her hand? Some people have said that that is not the case and that she is simply holding her dress up. But I don't believe that's the case because her hand is cupped. It's not pinching, holding the fabric. I've got a blurry image I could find here of what I mean by fabric being held up. And that is not what appears to be happening. I feel like that would be a fairly heavy dress, and it does not appear that she is holding it up. So because of that mistake, I believe, that is number 11 on the list, but not quite in the top 10. So anyways, let's get into the top 10 worst Magic card arts of all time, according to me. So at number 10, we have Goblin Artisans. I'm probably going to say a bunch of names wrong of the cards. Ignore that, doesn't matter. But Goblin Artisans, this one is high on the list because the artwork is kind of cool. The actual drawing itself isn't too bad. But my problem with the artwork is that I don't like when they use these modern things in Magic because we are supposed to believe that all these characters exist on the same plane or in the same universe. So to have a card like this, where everything else is like set in like a medieval sort of era, we have these goblins wearing these yellow hard hats, and clearly in like a work office that is somewhat modern. There's a clock, a modern clock in the background there. But this bothered me so much that I actually looked into the history of these yellow hard hats, and it turns out, hang on, I have the stuff here. Hang on, let me read it here. So the history of hard hats, in the 1930s, almost 1940s of our time, they were still using these like aluminum hard hats that would have looked perfectly fine, I think, in this card. The yellow plastic hard hats, as we know them, that we have, didn't come out until like the 1960s. So when this card came out, which was in the early 90s, these yellow hard hats had only been a thing in our time for like 30 years. So to put it on a Magic card that is supposed to take place such a long time ago, I know it's fantasy, obviously, but you know what I mean. I don't like it. It bothers me. There's other cards like this, like Orcish Conscripts is another one too, where you have, like, once again, it's goblins, obviously, but they've got what appears to be like a fairly modern noodle strainer as a helmet, and then the propeller hat, which I'm pretty sure the propeller hat thing didn't come out until like the 80s. So I don't like when they do that kind of stuff in Magic cards. There are joke sets. They're called the unsets, so like unglued, unhinged are the names of the sets, and they're purposefully funny, jokey Magic card that aren't set in the real Magic universe. And these cards look like they should be in the joke sets, not in the real sets. So anyways, that's my number 10. Up next at number 9, we have Veldrain of Sengir. This card is at number 9, higher up on the list, because once again, the artwork itself isn't too bad. It's more so the way the card is set up. So if you look at the card, you can tell, obviously, that the main, like, the character is standing in front of the tree, and then there's, like, a bigger version of himself sort of in the background. The problem with this is that they didn't do a good enough job differentiating that the character is not real behind them. So it looks like he's just standing beside a giant version of himself. So what I mean by that, just as an example, the card Trial of Strength from Amonkhet. This may be a bad example because the snake god, I forget his name, is actually standing there. But you can see how they have the character in the background and they've changed. It's sort of got like a fogginess to it. I guess the opacity, I don't know how to describe it, but you can see the character in the foreground is darker and the character in the background is almost kind of faded by comparison. And it gives it that sense of the main character and then this big giant scaled up thing in the background. And I think if they'd used that sort of effect in this card, it would have done a better job of not making it look like it looks like he could just reach back and touch his own cheek. You know what I mean? So it turns out that this artist has done a ton of artwork for Magic back in the day, and they all seem to follow the same sort of style, and they all look like they're just hanging out with a big version of themselves. I think the worst one art-wise might actually be Gift of the Woods, but it doesn't actually take the spot on the list because at least the giant cat head has that, what I'm trying to explain is that like kind of like mystical smokiness. So you can tell that the actual giant cat isn't supposed to be beside her. It's more of like a, I don't know how to describe what I'm saying, but you know what I mean though. Anyways, so this is my number 9 pick for that reason. So then our number 8 pick is Sorrow's Path. This one, if you look at the actual wizard shooting the lightning, he's actually drawn pretty well. It looks pretty cool. And I also do like the textures of the mountains and the rocks in the background. My problem with this one, I actually had to like look into why I hate this card so much, the artwork. And it turns out, according to Wikipedia, what makes a effective piece of artwork, especially in something like Magic where you're quickly looking through a bunch of different pieces of artwork, not just Magic though, for any artwork, is how effectively it is able to portray the story that it's trying to tell you. So every piece of artwork tells like a little story, right? And how quickly you are able to decipher what that is helps depict how good the artwork is. So just as an example, if you look at a card like A Tale for the Ages from Wilds of Eldraine, this card, the card name, A Tale for the Ages, so you expect the card to be someone telling a big tale, which in the artwork you can clearly see within about a split second that you have this little character telling a big tale. You have in the foreground, you have the people listening to the story, and they are obviously engaged in the story. So it doesn't take long for your brain to comprehend what this is and to see that it matches what the card is trying to tell you. The same thing is for the card Sleight of Hand, also from Wilds of Eldraine. So the card's called Sleight of Hand, and you can see this guy sort of being tricked or shocked by this guy's sleight of hand abilities. It reads instantly. You can very quickly tell what's happening in the artwork. It matches what's the title of the card, making it an effective piece of artwork. There is more things happening in the background, but they are, again, faded back with sort of less opacity to them. I don't know if that's the right term or not, but so you get the focal point of the artwork, and then if you decide you want to look further at the artwork, you can look into the background and see little details, but it doesn't take away from the main point of the card. So we look back at Sorrow's Path, the actual card on the list. It's very difficult to understand, even when looking at it for a long period of time, what the point of the card is. Like, what is the focal point? What are we supposed to be seeing here? It's very hard to make out the sort of story happening in the card. The card is called Sorrow's Path. So what does that mean? Like, who took Sorrow's Path? Who took the, you know what I mean? Like, did the guy getting zapped by the lightning, did he take the sorrowed path? Or is it the people in the background that took the wrong path because they're facing this dragon who's kind of just doing nothing in the background? It's just difficult to tell what's going on in the picture. So I don't like it, and that is number 8 on the list. After that, our number 7 pick on the list is the original Llanowar Elves. Llanowar Elves is a pretty iconic Magic card. It's been around since the very beginning, and the reason why I don't like this is because just the artwork itself. Again, this is a long time ago, so I don't know if they had decided what elves were supposed to look like yet, but elves, as we know them today, are meant to be sort of like beautiful creatures in a way, and this thing is pretty ugly. It looks more like a goblin or something to me. But my bigger issue with the card is just, it feels like the artist just kept adding stuff onto it. Like they had this picture and they just couldn't stop adding things to it. Like, let's add on this strap and then we'll add on this sort of bad looking design on the side of the head, and then we'll put like these leather strips on the top, and then we'll add the crazy hair, and it's too much. And it certainly doesn't look like an elf to me. The artwork got reused, oddly enough, by a different artist. So the artist that made this next card, Goblin Chirurgian, I guess took the art style from Llanowar Elves and reused it. This is even worse now because now it's got like this tiger body and this weird arm. Obviously, the goblin is sewing all the body parts together, but it looks like even more of a mess now. I do not like the design of this, and it's always bothered me. That is number 7 on the list. After that, number 6 on the list is Falco Griff, another old Magic card. This one is too cartoony, I feel, to fit into the Magic universe. If you've ever played the game Yu-Gi-Oh!, which I played before I started playing Magic, and that game actually led me into Magic. If you look at like the first couple sets of Yu-Gi-Oh!, I think Blue Eyes White Dragon is the first set. Look at some of the monsters and creatures from that set. And this looks like it belongs in a Yu-Gi-Oh! Set. After that, number 5 on the list is Word of Command. So just imagine you are an artist, an aspiring fantasy artist, and you would like your artwork to be on a Magic the Gathering card. So you submit all your work, and you work really hard, and you get a letter back from Magic the Gathering saying, we're very sorry, but your artwork didn't quite make the cut. It wasn't quite good enough. So you go out and you buy a pack of Magic cards, you open it up, and this is what you see. Feel like this card is very lazy. It's 2 eyes with a black background. I feel like this would have taken the artist maybe 15 minutes to make. So it's just out of pure laziness. I'm not a fan of this. Also, word of command. When I think of somebody giving a word of command, I picture like a powerful angel, or like a soldier, leader, or like a priest with a staff giving words of command to something, like powerful words. I don't think of something sneaking in the shadows. I guess it could mean more so like it's like, in the shadows whispering you, manipulating you with words of command. Maybe that's what it's trying to say. But anyways, not a big fan. Number 5 on the list. At number 4, I have Balduvian Warmakers. I don't think this one needs too much explanation as to why I am not a fan. It's a little bit creepy. Just a bunch of shirtless guys all kind of pressed together. It's very unclear what they're doing here. I feel like maybe they're all like riding on an animal. Like if maybe there's like a rhino or a dragon they're riding on. If you could see below the frame, that would be the case. But this is the artwork that we got, so I don't know if that's what it's supposed to be. It's kind of creepy looking, like I said. The big thing is that it's very unclear at first glance, at least to me it was, what body parts belong to which people. It took me a few seconds to realize, like if you look at the guy closest to us at the very back, his chest and stomach, I couldn't figure out at first that was actually what that was. I thought that it was actually an in-shape guy. If you look at just his arm and his back and ignore and the head on top, it looks like it's just like an in-shape guy. And then I couldn't figure out what that in front of him was. I thought that was like part of the guy in the middle, but then I finally understood that it was, I guess the guy I don't know. Cause like if you look at where his chest connects, it kind of connects up to like his chin. So it doesn't really make sense that that's his chest. I don't know. It looks like a big tangled mess of man flesh.
Man flesh.
And for that reason, I'm not a fan. At number 3, we have Flash. This one, I just think it looks poorly drawn. I think the art quality is not good. It's also very unclear sort of what's happening in the artwork. The card is called Flash, and what the card does is it puts a creature from your hand and kind of like flashes it into play all of a sudden. So I think what's happening is that the guy with the pink face who's staring at us has flashed in this dragon thing, and then the people in the background, I guess, are maybe running away from it. I think that's what's going on. I don't know why the guy with the pink face is staring at us like that. I feel like he should have been facing what's actually going on. because by facing us like that, it looks like he's turned around and is saying to us like, see, look what I did kind of thing. Like he's acknowledging us as the audience and he's proud of flashing in his dragon. But poor artwork, doesn't make sense what's happening. I don't know why the guy has so many head wrinkles, but that's my number 3 on the list. Then at number 2, we have Unholy Strength. This one I've always not liked, mainly because, I mean, the guy looks weird, but the big thing is like I can't look at this image without seeing this.
What's going now?
So it's always reminded me of that. Yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about it. Not a big fan of the artwork. Yeah. Then at number 1, we have what I believe to be the worst magic art of all time, and that is Celestial Prism. So when I see this card, it reminds me of when I was in high school and I was sitting in class not paying attention, which is what I usually was doing. I would sort of like just draw shapes and doodle on my notepads and stuff like that just to pass the time. And this looks worse than the things that I would draw when I was bored in high school. I think it's poorly drawn. I think it's lazy. It looks like it was just colored in by like pencil crayons, which maybe it was. Again, they didn't use Photoshop and stuff like that, I don't think, back during those times. This is all hand drawn, obviously. But I just think it's super lazy. I don't know if there was like a deadline to get the last set out, to get the last few cards out, and they just picked what they had. But I don't think this looks very good. I would say that it's less lazy than Word of Command, because Word of Command is just 2 eyeballs. But at least Word of Command sort of has like a bit of theming to it. Yeah, it kind of gives off like a bit of like the creepy eyes and, you know, and whatever. Whereas this is just like a poorly drawn shape. Again, I feel like I'm being really mean to the artist with this, but I actually looked up Amy Weber, and she's got a website, and there's lots of cool art on her website. So obviously she got better after this one. She also drew Falco Griff, that cartoon hippo, as well. But anyways, that's my picks for the top 10 worst Magic card arts of all time. I'm sure there are many cards that you think are worse than these, so I would be very happy to hear what you think are the worst Magic card arts of all time. Let me know in the comments which cards you think are the worst, and I will happily look into them and see them. But yeah, thanks for watching. If you happened to like this video, I do have more videos like this coming out in the future. So yeah, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.